On today's show, we're diving into the Oklahoma City Thunder getting a big win against the Boston Celtics, sweeping the Celtics in the Garden. This was an MVP performance from Shai. This was a game that should get the Thunder more recognition, more respect. We'll talk about why on today's show.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're diving into the Thunder beating the Celtics, getting a season series sweep, winning in the Garden through adversity. SGA and his MVP case get stronger, and the Thunder showed you why they should be respected. This was a game, first and foremost, between two titans of the sport, between two of the best in the NBA, and a series that should happen in June. I mean, these two teams should take care of business. Hopefully they do and get to the finals, because we would all benefit from it as just basketball fans, because the pure hoops that was on display in this game were fun to watch, and the back and forths were fun to watch. The individual chess matches of this game were fun to watch. And this is a kind of series that would be an instant classic. I think that would captivate an audience, and I think that would be good for a sport that's right now really dragged through the mud at times with the national discourse. All that out of the way to say the Thunder got a big win, and we've called almost everyone, it feels like, their most impressive win, because there's been impressive elements of all these wins for the most part in this Thunder season. I don't think it's their best win. I think that Cleveland win at home, with all that they went through to get that win, was huge. I think that this first Celtics win was huge. But man, to go on the road into the Garden and get this win, it just showed a level of maturity and a level of resolve to bounce back from that Denver loss Monday, down J-Dub, down Caruso, and get a win over a reigning champion Celtics squad. And the Thunder saw SGA play like the MVP in terms of his floor game, in terms of his leadership and his scoring ability. 34 points on 55% shooting, 2 for 7 from 3, 10 for 11 at the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and a steal. I thought that the Celtics defended Shai better than anyone has all season long. I mean, they sent doubles at the right time. They were able to strip him. They forced him into 5 turnovers, which is unbelievably uncharacteristic. And yet still, right, with giving Boston all of the credit in the world for throwing the kitchen sink at Shai, making life tough on Shai, and making Shai uncomfortable throughout possessions. And that's something that not a lot of teams can do, but Boston can. And the end result is still 34 points on 55% shooting in 38 minutes of work, 39 technically. So that right there tells you what you need to know. This game had a playoff level feel for both sides in terms of defensive intensity. It had a playoff level feel from both sides in terms of the coaching staffs making adjustments in game, playing their guys 39, 40 minutes like you do in the playoffs. I mean, Shai played 39 minutes. Lou Dort played 39 minutes. And you look at the other side, and Jalen Brown fouled out at 38 minutes. Jason Tatum played 41 minutes. Al Horford played 35 minutes, 34 minutes. Derek White played 38 minutes. Like you look at these two teams, and they really shrunk the rotations and went and played ball. They went after it. And the better team tonight won. I think that the series would go 7 games between these two squads. And at that point, it's just a toss-up of who would actually win a series between these two, if we are so lucky to get that NBA Finals matchup as basketball fans. But Shai did an excellent job. But I thought the story of the game was Chet Holmgren. Chet Holmgren had 23 points, 15 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block. He got to the free throw line 7 times, and he got there by being aggressive off the catch, by getting downhill and getting toward the basket and forcing the issue with the officials to get to the line. He only went 4 for 7, and he's only been like a mid-70s free throw shooter this season. I think he's a better free throw shooter than that. I think he has to become a better free throw shooter than that consistently. But that was even an issue pre-hip injuries. Like that one, I don't even want to chalk up to the hip fracture, because even during that amazing stretch in the first 10 games where he looked like an all-star, that was just one hole of his game during that stretch. So the free throw stuff is interesting from him and J-Dub, because whenever they do get to the line, sometimes they leave a lot to be desired at the charity stripe. But nonetheless, to even get there showed a level of athleticism, a level of force that we've seen flashes of from Chet, but have seen the most from him on Sunday and on this game here Wednesday against Boston. And so you've seen him round into form. He shot 57% from the floor on 14 attempts. The double big lineups worked really well. We'll talk about that coming up. But for Chet, in a game that you had to have it, you had to have him step up. And that's a lot to ask of him. And I'm here to be the first one to tell you that if he didn't step up, we would be sitting here saying, well, he broke his hip. He broke his hip. And that's true. And he has that out because it's true, because it's unthinkable to put this much on him so quickly after that hip fracture. And yet he delivered. And he delivered on Sunday, even through foul trouble. When he did get to play on the floor, those spinning to the lane finishes, including that dunk into a timeout, attacking Jamal Murray off the catch at the top of the key, all that stuff was reminiscent of what you saw from Chet earlier this year, what you saw from Chet in his rookie season. And you're slowly seeing him build back to that guy. And he has 16 more games to continue to round into form for this Thunder team. But in a night where you had to have him step up, he did. And some players are like that. Some players rise to the occasion. And I truly believe Chet Holmgren is one of those players. And he rose to the occasion tonight. The Thunder still have a very tough road ahead this week. But for tonight, Chet Holmgren was awesome in his minutes along with SGA. But the 1-2 punch of Shai, Chet got the job done. The 1-2 punch of Shai, J-Dub in January against Boston got the job done. And at some point, you're going to have to respect this team. They're 54-12. Every metric tells you that they are a title contender. The only metric missing is a ring, and they can't win a ring in March. They can't win a ring until June. And look, a lot of this, you're just going to have to deal with. As a Thunder fan listening to this show, you're going to have to deal with. Because they question Boston too. They question Denver too. They question the Warriors too. Then they win and we forget all that and just crown them as the next dynasty. It's all about playing the results. But last year's team who lost in the second round is not this year's team. This is a completely different team. And you can either believe your eyes and believe what's in front of you, or you can believe that magically, come May, Josh Giddey's back on the team, Hartenstein's off the team, and they're going to resort right back to what doomed them in the playoffs a year ago. This team is so different that we don't know what this team is. To bank on them being a postseason failure because of what happened last year is just ludicrous. Especially when the constant is, like, of all these changes, the constant is they still have Shai, who was excellent, who averaged 32 points, over 32 points in that series against Dallas. So it's not as though you're hoping that like Shai bounces back as a option, right? As a playoff guy. He was awesome in the playoffs. It wasn't his fault that the Thunder lost. He was the reason why they took it to 6 games. But games like tonight continue to build their resume, continue to stress test them. This was a great job by the Thunder, top to bottom, to take this challenge head on and to get a win. And there were all these little details, including the double big lineups, including SGA fighting through a great defense. Cason Wallace deserves a ton of credit. Isaiah Hartenstein was big off the bench. I mean, the Thunder didn't start 2 bigs. They worked them in during the game, but they started out with Cason and Wiggins in that starting 5. And Wiggins had his worst game of the season where, he went 0 for 9 defensively. He's just not very good at scaling up defensively, positionally. And that's just not a part of his game. He's a good defender when it comes to guarding a guard, but any position other than a guard, he really labors on that end. And he's talked about how he's uncomfortable doing that. So when you're not hitting your shots and that's the result on the other end, it's really tough. But they overcame that. They overcame the 0 for 9 from Wiggins. They overcame not having Caruso, overcame not having J-Dub. It was all about going through these battle scars, these wars. And I know it didn't happen in April, so it doesn't count, but they still went through adversity together throughout this entire season to get to this point. Coming up, let's talk Cason. Let's talk double big lineups. Let's talk about this Thunder win. And let's talk about the narrative that nobody respects the Thunder, all on the way. But first, I want to say right now, but our good friends over at TurboTax, go check out TurboTax today, because right now you should check them out, as this message is brought to you by TurboTax. Taxes, they used to be waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back at all, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. But now taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can get you your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes the individual attention that they need to be worked on for your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, every document, everything with 100% accuracy, all so you get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worrying. Now, this is taxes. Get an expert right now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only available for iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Also want to tell you right now, my good friends over at Monarch Money. Go check them out today at monarchmoney.com. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out and online shopping and entertainment, it's easy to lose track of where your money is going. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO. It gives you full visibility and control over your finances. With Monarch Money, it isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can task and track all your accounts, your investments, and spending in one place. So you can stop managing your money and start building wealth. You can go check them out today because it's all in one for your convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check on your finances, your tracking spending, and even planning your long-term goals. Take the control of your finances back with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Again, monarchmoney.com. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for 50% off your first year. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Big win for the Thunder. The double big stuff really worked. And it didn't just work, but it illustrated why they're so committed to it in the regular season. Because if you look across the bow, had this lineup not worked tonight, people would have been beside themselves as to saying, well, there's no matchup reason to play this lineup against Boston. Why are they shoehorning it in right now? Guess what? Because you get to dictate the terms and conditions of the game. And when it works like this against a smaller Celtics lineup, then you've changed the game. You've changed the advantage. You've created a mismatch. It's the inverse of what the Thunder had to deal with all year long. And in a game like this, to be able to go single big at the start, double big, back to single big, go small, to do all of the things the Thunder have in their toolbox, continues to make even the savviest teams, even the best coaches, even the most experienced teams who've been into every situation imaginable. Boston only has one championship, but they've been to two finals. They've been to countless Eastern Conference finals. They've been all around the world and back again with this core. And yet it still at times made them uncomfortable to deal with a team who has this many options at their disposal. And with the double big stuff, what they did was they really carried that secondary unit without Shai. First to admit, I did not think that this team could pull off this win in the fashion that they did, where they weren't just sunk without Shai on the floor. This was not a superhuman effort from Shai. It was a good Shai game. It was a Shai game that I think, even though the box score wasn't as gaudy as previous games, it was one of his better games because he had to figure out the puzzle pieces of figuring out how to problem solve the Celtics defense, which was really awesome against him. But again, they didn't just sink when Shai was off the floor. And it's because of the Hartenstein and Holmgren pairing together. They found each other on lobs. The DHO to Chet for three was awesome. They were able to manufacture offense as two 7-foot playmakers and guys who can score to put Boston in a bit of a bind and keep the offense at least afloat. That's been the biggest key in all of this. The Thunder have a player that has the caliber of Shai to where all you have to do is not sink with him off the floor, and you're going to have an amazing shot to win these games. And that's what they did. They got really good minutes from Kenrich Williams. They got really good minutes from Ousmane Dieng. I mean, the 7 minutes from Ous, he hit a shot that I don't think he makes in any year of his NBA career, but this one, with that pass over the top of the defense from Hartenstein, contact at the rim, and he finishes it. And then even the goaltend. It sounds silly to say, but that was a great goaltend because it just showed the level of aggression that Us has not played with at the NBA level, and he gave you 7 really good minutes, a +3. That +3 is the reason why Shai comes into the game after resting in the second up by 6. And they were able to do that on both ends. On the second quarter sit and the fourth quarter sit, they were able to do that and give Shai a situation where he's not having to just dig them out of a monumental hole. He's having to lead a game, lead a team, and get a win. Much more manageable to be able to do. So top to bottom, I thought the Thunder really did a great job tonight. I thought that Mark did a great job tonight. He brought Shai in earlier in the fourth than he usually does. He managed, the second quarter very well, where he stole some extra rest for Shai because of how that secondary lineup was working, but didn't go too far with it. I thought that this timeout usage was really good. I mean, the timeout that he called with Lou getting across the timeline to not lose it at the 3-minute mark of the fourth quarter, I thought that is a key timeout. You look at how coaches budget their timeouts, and I think it tells you a lot about them. And this is not an indictment on Joe Mazzulla, because I think that Joe's a good coach. But at the 3-minute mark, when you lose your timeouts down to 2, in this game, Boston threw away 2 timeouts. Like 2 of them just got taken away from them. OKC threw away 0. They had 3 going into that mandatory loss, and they called the timeout to where they only have 2 left after 3 anyway. So they didn't lose any of the use or lose at timeouts. And in a game where you're playing your stars more than normal, again, and in the Thunder's case, it was 39 minutes for Shai. Those are invaluable stoppages. Did they need a timeout when Lou was across the timeline based upon the game flow? No, not at all. But you're going to lose it if you don't use it, and it's a way to steal rest for a guy who's extending, your minutes with Shai and with Lou. And to just give away those timeouts, and Mark's really good at that, of not giving away timeouts and not getting to that point with 4, the way that Joe did today, just by the way the game went. Again, not an indictment on Joe, but I thought that was really good. The budgeting of the timeouts and handling the Celtics runs, because this was a game of runs. The Celtics had a really good run in all 4 quarters, including in that third quarter where it looked like they kind of solved OKC, and then the Thunder adjusted. It was the Thunder's turn to adjust after it was tied up after 3. This game was tied after 3 quarters, and the Thunder win in a 118-112 fashion. There was 10 lead changes and 10 ties. The Thunder once were up by 12. The Celtics never got up by more than 2 points. The Boston Celtics, in a game where J-Dub and Caruso did not play, they never got up by more than 2 points. And without those 2 key rotational pieces, the Thunder still found a way to win on the road in a game that was chaotic and had 10 lead changes and 10 ties. And saw plenty of runs and saw Boston make 23s. Now, they had to take a franchise record 63 threes to get there, and they shot 31% from 3. But still, credit to the Thunder where it is due to get a win like this. And you look at Boston, first half, they shot 41% from 3. Second half, Boston shot 18% from 3. Now, that's just, in part, shooting volatility, of just how volatile it is and how much variance goes into it. That's also in part the Thunder being really well equipped to fly out and contest shooters. Now, look, Boston is so good at shooting, and the reason why that they take all these threes is because they're excellent at it and because they can hit contested ones. But this is 2 games now where Boston had what could be called their worst shooting night against OKC. Because of all the teams, the Thunder are the most athletic. The Thunder are the best rotation team. The Thunder are the best defensive discipline team in those rotations to get a hand up and just let the ball fall where it may, right? Like live with the result. If they're hitting threes that are contested, you tip your cap to them and you say, "Good, great job." I mean, you've built a team designed for threes and they've made them. But at the very least, you have to contest them. And the Thunder did a good job of that tonight, which got the end result to 31% from three for the Celtics, for a team that typically shoots 37% from three. Sort of the same formula with all the moving parts as the January game, where Boston shot terrible from three and the Thunder won in OKC. And that's where I think it is a bit repeatable, even though by nature, three-point shooting swings no matter what. The Thunder give themselves the best chance to defend the three-point line against the Boston Celtics. So I think that this series would be great for basketball. I think that if you're the NBA, your brain tells you to root for Lakers Celtics. I think that in reality, that's what your heart tells you. Your brain should tell you to root for Thunder Celtics in the finals, because it would captivate an audience. It would captivate NBA fans, and you'd get to see two awesome defenses, two awesome teams that blend star power with all stars in their roles. Top to bottom, great teams, great coaches, great theater, great chess matches, great environments. It'd all be great if these two teams can get the job done in their conference. And the season series has shown that. Coming up, though, let's talk Cason. Let's talk respect. Let's talk this game. But first, I want to say right now, but our good friends over at FanDuel, go check out FanDuel today. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to get on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra if you win, to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting the nets down. So go check it out today at FanDuel.com for your college hoop action as the tournaments begin. But if you're just an NBA fan, don't worry. I mean, they still have plenty for you out there, like the Lakers-Bucks game. Lakers +6 tonight against Milwaukee. Go check that out at FanDuel.com. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. And on today's show, we've been talking Boston, we've been talking Thunder. But to put a bow on this game, Lou hit timely threes, and he was superb defensively. Just excellent on the defensive end from Lou. Cason deserves a ton of credit for what he's done on the ball this year. It's been one of the sneaky developments of his game that's been overshadowed by a ton of different storylines because there's so many of them for this Thunder team, mostly all of them positive. But even just taking these last two games, when J-Dub was ruled out at halftime of Monday's game, Cason was thrusted into that J-Dub role. And he gave you 9 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds, and 2 steals on 66% shooting. And he was really in control of the game on the ball, while the rest of your offense was just ice cold. And so again, that's another game where you lost. The second half offense was dreadful, and that can get swept under the rug. But we talked about it on this show. And then tonight, again in that J-Dub role, he had 14 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and a block. He only missed 1 shot tonight. And he only made 1 3. He was 1 for 1 from 3. He had 5 shots inside the arc where he was really good at attacking off the dribble and getting to the rim. He had 4 free throw attempts, being aggressive downhill on the ball, and he made up for missing J-Dub. He filled those shoes to the best of his ability while still being an excellent defender who can scale up and defend multiple positions. But I thought his on-ball presence was good, and it's what tied together that secondary unit. Whenever you had him on the ball and you had the double bigs playmaking, it was really good stuff from OKC to weather the storm of not having your go-to scorer in J-Dub. And of your scores of who's going to have to get the pumpkin in the patch in the second unit, it's J-Dub and it's Wiggins. J-Dub doesn't play, and Wiggins is 0 for 9. And you still won the game. And that's what speaks volumes to the ways OKC can win. They can win mud fights. They can win track meets. They can win through adversity. They can win with the next man stepping up. They can win with the role player surprise. They can win in every which way. They've just got to go out there and prove it in the postseason, and that's where we close today with the billionth time that Brian Windhorst, who I love Brian Windhorst. I love the Hoop Collective. I love all that Windy does. But he's infatuated with this story that nobody respects the Thunder and that nobody's scared of the Thunder. Guys, first of all, again, top of the show, we said it. You're going to have to just eat this until the Thunder win. Whether they win it this year or win it 5 years from now, until the Thunder win a championship, this will always be what your regular season consists of. It'll always consist of, no matter how good they are, but can they do it in the playoffs? Because that's all we care about. It's ring culture. All we care about as a society nowadays is the postseason. The Celtics had to go through it. Denver had to go through it. The Warriors had to go through it. Every team had to go through it. And the thing is, nobody's done anything until they have. So you're always going to be right if you doubt teams until they pull off being the one of 30 to win a title. And then once they pull that off, then you just switch to something else, right? LeBron could never win. He was a laughing stock after the Dirk beat him. Then he won, and okay, now what can we pick apart? Let's switch to a different narrative. We got to change that. Oh, the Warriors, it'll never work. They're shooting way too much. It'll never work. Then it works, and they're the next dynasty. Oh, you can't win with Jokic. He'll never win. Nobody's scared of Jokic. He just lost in the first round. You cannot win with Jokic. The second they won, the next day, ESPN crowned them a dynasty, and look how that's turned out. Tatum and Brown cannot work together. Who cares about the regular season? They have all these stats, but nobody's intimidated by Tatum and Brown. You've got to split up the Jays. They win. The next day, they're a dynasty. The Thunder will be disrespected up until the very day that they hoist the Larry O'Brien trophy, and the next day, they will have a coronation for the next NBA dynasty. That's what it's going to be. But on the basis of fear, you should know it means nothing. That is a nothing report. And I'll tell you why. That same person, whoever it is, the anonymous person who's saying that they don't fear the Thunder, will also not tell you who they do fear. You want to know why? Because they don't fear anybody. Because to be at this level as an executive, as a player, as a coach, you've got to be such the ultimate competitor that you don't believe you're going to lose to anybody. Because none of these teams are perfect. The Thunder are not perfect. Denver's not perfect. Cleveland's not perfect. Boston's not perfect. None of these teams are perfect. Adam Silver has won. This is the era of parity. Every team should feel like they have a chance. The Timberwolves are in the play-in tournament, and they should feel like they can beat the Thunder. They should feel like they can beat Denver. They should feel like they can win the NBA championship. So who cares if nobody fears the Thunder? If you fear the Thunder, you should not have a job in the industry that is based solely on competitiveness. And guess what? The Thunder would never say that they fear anybody either. I can guarantee you that the Thunder would never say that they fear somebody. I would guarantee you that the Lakers would never say that they fear anybody. No team would say that they have fear for another team. The only times in NBA history that you could even say anything close to this would be like the Heatles, whenever other teams would just say, we probably shouldn't improve our roster because what's the point? That wasn't fear. That was saying we're not going to be able to fix this roster that is obviously flawed and cannot compete. But guess what? The Mavericks still beat them. Spurs beat them. Like, do you think that Dallas feared Miami? Obviously not. They weren't shaking in their boots, right? They came back and won the series. It's just such a ludicrous thing because it's too strong of a word to ask people, like, do you fear them whenever they're in the competitive field? I think if you got the truth serum out on Dallas during that run where they continued to take down Titans in the Western Conference. If you weren't around for the Dallas run, look up what Dirk went through to even get to the finals. I guarantee you, as they were going through that finals, if you gave them truth serum, would they prefer to play the Heatles, or they prefer someone upsets them? They prefer an upset. But that doesn't mean that they were scared of them. So it's just ludicrous. Like, no one's ever going to be scared of another team. So who cares? But it's the sixth time that Wendy's reported, and I love Wendy. I think Wendy's awesome. But it just, don't get riled up by it every single time it comes out, because it's just nothing. It's fake. Not fake in the sense of like no one said it to him. I fully believe that he wouldn't make it up. It's fake in the idea of it. The basis of it is fake. Because we don't know how it was asked. If someone is asked, do you fear the Thunder? Their answer better be no, or you should be fired. That's the bottom line. Because you shouldn't fear any team. Nobody's dying. It's basketball, as Jason Kidd would say. So from an element of respect, you can either play the results and never respect any team, any player, anybody until they get to the top, or you can look at this season for what it is, and every metric suggests the Thunder are a team who you should want to avoid because they're really good. But they haven't won a championship yet. So you can always hide behind that fact. And they might not win a championship this year. They're not infallible. Neither is any other team. So therefore, you shouldn't fear any team in the NBA. We'll talk more about it tomorrow, I'm sure. We'll talk more about this game and the upcoming East Coast swing. The Thunder continue to dominate the Eastern Conference throughout this season. So we can talk about that heading into two very tough Eastern Conference games for OKC on tomorrow's show. But until next time, be good and be good to one another.